I think we're at beginning time, so we have all the folks here. So I guess let's get this kicked off. So, greetings everyone, my name is Christian McHugh. As you can probably tell from the accents, I am not native to Ireland. I moved here back in July or so, and I work as the DevOps leader here in Dublin for Dun & Bradstreet. So in our office, we had some issues around how we ran Jenkins, as well as a whole lot of other tools. So we were going through a kind of recreation, redeployment process, and figured we wanted to share that story with you a little bit about what we're working on and why, and what we kind of came up with. So I guess Damien will probably be kicking off some of that about the goal and vision for how to run Jenkins. What's worse than that? And so after that, we had another presenter who wanted to present about some work that's being done at Black Box Builds. And then we also wanted to go through a walkthrough of the anatomy of a Jenkins plugin and kind of how to write it. So that's the agenda for this evening. But as I mentioned to some folks earlier, my goal with all these meetups is to kind of have a conversation more than just a lecture. So I would really like to see, if you guys have any questions or problems, you think something's silly, please shout it out, because this is, we're here to get feedback and to talk to you guys about your problems as well as the stuff that's being presented. So feel free to shout out about questions, any problems, anything you've got while we go through this. So I guess with that, sure, feel free to kick it off.
Feel free to interrupt me with any questions as well at any time. Make it interactive, it's kind of easier on me that way. So I'm not just droning on. Okay. So I'm Damien Roche, so I'm on the DevOps team here. So I'm a senior engineer. So I joined about 5 months now, nearly 6 months. So my primary responsibilities is automation and infrastructure as code. So my background is configuration management, and I've been doing this with various tools for about the last 5 years or more, full time. Prior to that, I was a software engineer, using various language tools, so on. So to go into provisioning, so our problem here was we have multiple unmanaged Jenkins instances which have evolved over time to a state where, how do we get them to a state where we can reprovision them from infrastructure as code? So the general problem with Jenkins is that somebody deploys it as a way to solve a problem and to get your continuous integration environments or continuous testing running. And then over time, people install plugins, add more plugins, then that person leaves, and then the next person comes along and takes over and then installs more plugins. And it's a vicious circle. So I want to take a step back to go into the hierarchy of the capabilities versus tooling first, to kind of, and then we'll map the tooling to the capabilities that we use internally. So the overarching one is monitoring. So that covers everything. Orchestration will be how we get things done in whatever environment, and then continuous integration, delivery, deployment. We also have binary artifact management, configuration management, secret as a service or certificate as a service. And then it's all built on top of our infrastructure as a service platform, whatever that may be. So that's the core capabilities we need to identify tools for. So the tooling we've chosen internally here is, they're all underscored, but there are generally always other tools available. And sometimes you have tools that span capabilities. An example would be SaltStack. It's both an orchestrator and a config management tool. So we were using SaltStack for orchestration and for configuration management. So that's how we describe what we want done in code and how to get there. And we're using it in the orchestration sense, in that we want steps to execute in that order. So one that's popped up on our radar recently is Apache Brooklyn. So it's a way to orchestrate multiple tools. It's kind of tool, it's non-opinionated on the tool front, which is really appealing in that we don't have to code our pipelines to be tool specific. We code the Brooklyn to be tool specific, and the pipelines just run the tool. It's a further level of abstraction. It's more in the technical orchestration than the tool. So in the CI/CD space, we have Jenkins, Bamboo, Drone CI, GitLab. We're using Jenkins internally, hence the talk here. So on binary artifact management, we have Nexus Artifactory. We're using a combination of both. Salt Stack for configuration management. Now we have used others, and I've used a lot. I've used Chef, Ansible, and Puppet myself. They all solve the same problem. It's pick one and run with it. Vault for secret management. So secret as a service using HashiCorp Vault. And Vault also fits into the certificate as a service in that you can have it be your handout certificates on request. And we're using AWS as our cloud platform. So we're using Terraform to provision the infrastructure. So it's pretty relaxed on. It's a common language to describe any topology of your infrastructure. And if you create the modules correctly, it's pretty easy to transparently do that. It has its pitfalls, but it's for another talk. So the orchestration of how we configure Jenkins. So we use Salt. We have a Salt master. We have a Jenkins server with a minion installed. So that's a server-client architecture. The minion will request from Salt what do you need me to do in my initial first run. Salt will give it the list of instructions to execute in what order. So the Jenkins has permission based on IAM roles to spin up ephemeral agents. So that's a scale issue. So if you want to scale easily, you can spin up on demand as you need and scale back down when there's no need for those instances anymore. So those agents also plug into Salt for their boot time configuration. So it's all dynamic. There's no baked-in AMI images floating around, or it's all done at runtime. So that has a couple of problems there. We can talk about that if anyone's interested. So what are we solving when we're provisioning? So we're using Salt to deploy Jenkins with init Groovy scripts. So we're configuring AD integration, we're configuring the EC2 for ephemeral instances, we're configuring ECS for ephemeral containers. So I can talk more about that later. And we're managing plugins to eventually enforce plugin versioning, so that if somebody manually updates a plugin via the console, the next reboot of that Jenkins server will restore the current state or the desired state. We're managing credentials through a combination of Salt and Vault. So I'll talk a bit more about that now. So how we get secrets down to the nodes is on the Jenkins server. We have the minion. The minion requests a token from the Salt master, or requests a secret from the Salt master. The Salt master will on behalf of the minion, request a token, a one-time use token from Vault, and we'll pass that token back to the minion. The minion then makes a direct call to Vault for its secrets. So it's a secure way of getting the sensitive data down to the node. So what we do there is we write the sensitive information to a Groovy script and have the Groovy script effect the change on the node through the init Groovy scripts. So those scripts would be ephemeral in that they only live on the server for the time it takes to start up, and are then removed. So we have some source code available on GitHub. So the Groovy scripts are all versioned and freely available to take a look. Is there some kind? Any questions or? Any details you want to go into?
I'm interested in why you're provisioning instances at boot time and not using it like Damien.
It's speed of change, so we're updating our build tool chains at the moment, so we don't know what we don't know yet, so we're rebuilding and making these things versionless code, so we have them dynamic in that sense. The end goal will be, I'll bring it up now, is to talk about our next steps, where I would like to see things go around ephemeral containers for isolated build environments. So what's next? So pipelines, we're looking to orchestrate everything through pipelines, and to do that properly we need to be able to run plans massively in parallel, and the easiest way to do that is with containers, I think, as you can support hundreds of tool chains, and the older the tool chain doesn't really matter because it's containerized and it runs on your kernels inside a box, in a black box. So here's a basic architecture of a development stage in production. Sorry about the eye chart now, but you would have each environment would have an ECS cluster where your agents can be spun up in an ephemeral fashion, and any plan that would execute in those can launch in a number of containers. So if you had, say, 50,000 tests that required a Selenium instance, you could open up all those containers in parallel if your resources allow, and they would scale back down as you finish. So, and the beauty about ECS and Jenkins is that you can actually pass IAM roles through to the containers themselves. So you can give a container privilege to execute specific tasks in specific regions based on that role. So any questions around that one?
It's good approach. Good.
That's it.